Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. It's a good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you folks are doing awesome out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your Tuesday and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Tuesday. We'll spend a lot of time on this significant severe weather risk for the south central U.S. Texas, Louisiana, going to be two big states are going to get impacted by severe weather. We have a higher tornado risk compared to yesterday, a damaging wind risk, and we have a very large hail risk for today. And it's not just for today. This is going to meander into the overnight hours. In fact, the overnight hour severe weather threat could be more significant than what happens while the sun is still up today, if that makes sense. So we'll speak on that first. Tomorrow's severe weather risk looks to be more high end. It's actually increased. We have a moderate risk at day 2 for tomorrow for Wednesday already. So we will speak on that in a separate segment in this video. Everything will be time stamped out very well for you folks to utilize. For you guys who want to do just jump ahead to certain sections of the video. Of course, we're never going to steer away from just our daily forecast, breaking down the entire lower 48. So, like I said, everything's time-stamped out well for you folks to just jump ahead. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about as far as this severe weather risk today. You know, we've been talking about this for the last few days, how we thought a multi-day severe weather risk was coming up, and certainly it is looking a very severe. It really is. So, with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So this is what's going on right now. We got a lot of rain. We got a cluster of rain and storms in western, northwestern, the panhandle of Texas. A lot of heavy rain and storm activity in northeast Texas, northern Louisiana. We got showers and storms along the Texas and western Louisiana coastline, widespread rains across the state of Arkansas, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Georgia, even into the upstate of South Carolina, and even into southern Tennessee. We do have a lot of rain falling out there. Got a cluster of rain up here in the UP of Michigan with this pesky spin that just continues, well, to spin around out there. But we do have some moisture in the northern Rockies, Pacific Northwest, but, you know, not a big deal, you guys. It's not anything that you guys aren't used to up there. Middle of the country, pretty quiet. But there is no severe weather going as of right now. That will change pretty quickly over the next several hours into this evening, that's for sure. Watches, warnings, and advisories. There are flood watches up. You know, that's going to be kind of a storyline that might not be talked about as much because we have such a high-end threat of severe weather over the next 48 hours. But flooding is going to be a very big concern. Several inches of rain could fall over some of the same areas over the next 2 days. So we do have flood watches up. But outside of that, guys, most of the country is pretty quiet. Still have lingering red flag warnings, fire danger still up for southwest Texas. So be aware with that. Some high wind warnings are up for areas of Montana. So be, aware of that. Some winter weather advisories up for the Cascades of Washington State. But outside of that, you know, it's pretty quiet across the country as far as watches, warnings, and advisories. Okay, so the excessive rainfall outlook today, guys, we do have a moderate risk, which means we have at least a 40% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles of any given point in this area. That yellow is the same, but it's a 15% risk. So definitely a dangerous flash flooding risk today. So be aware of that. Let's jump right into the severe weather threats. So here's a broad look at today, and I want to let you know right off the dot. On the day of a severe weather risk, we could have tweaks with this, but this is as of right now, you know, around 7-ish a.m. Eastern time. We'll have another update in probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours from the time I'm making this video. But as of right now, we are maintaining the enhanced risk from the Storm Prediction Center in Texas into a Louisiana, slight risk surrounding it. So let's go on and take a smaller look at this. But I do want to mention there is a marginal risk of severe weather up here for northeast Ohio, northwest PA, and western New York State. All right, level 1 out of 5. We'll talk a little bit on that once we get to the northeast panel. Let's take a closer look at the severe weather risk for the south central U.S. today. So in the orange, that's an enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. And the yellow, level 2 out of 5, a slight risk, including in all the cities. Of course, it's missing many towns and cities and communities, but this is why I've been trying to show you guys this graphic. It kind of does a really good job showing some of these areas like Waco, Austin, Houston, all in this enhanced risk. Even into western sections and central sections of Louisiana. So definitely have that level 3 out of 5 risk. So what is this excuse me, what is this driven off of? Tornado outlook, 10% risk. There's a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location in this yellow area. In the black outline region, you see here with the black dashes going in between it, that is also a risk of significant tornadoes, which means you have a 10% risk of a strong tornado in this case, which is an EF2 or higher. Not added on to the already 10% in the yellow areas that make 20. It's its own risk. So we have a risk of strong tornadoes today. In the brown area, we have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. In the green, a 2% risk. So we definitely have a higher tornado risk today. We also have a damaging wind threat today. We have a 30% risk in this red area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. I'm going to reiterate this a couple times, and I already said it earlier in the video. The severe weather risk is going to carry on well into the overnight hours. In fact, a kind of its own separate complex of storms will form down here, and we'll talk about this here in a second, and sweep northeastward into the rest of eastern Texas, into Louisiana, eventually into Mississippi, driving tomorrow's severe weather risk. So if the sun sets and you haven't seen any severe weather in this area in Texas or Louisiana, and you're thinking, man, we got out of this scot-free, you might be mistaken. So continue to be weather aware. And I'll talk about why here in a second when we talk about the HRRR model run for Texas. But the hail outlook in the red, that is a 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The yellow, a 15% risk of that. But in the black outline region, that is a risk of significant weather, which in this case is hail. So we have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. So there is a very large hail threat, a risk for very large hail today in this area for sure. The energy is going to be there. We'll speak on that also. Let's go on and jump into the HRRR model. And I know I'm cutting off Louisiana a little bit here. For you folks in Louisiana, I'm going to have something time stamped out for you folks. I'm going to focus really specifically on Texas right now. All right, so we're starting it off this morning. There's probably going to be some sort of warm front, some sort of boundary right into here. Storms will kind of flank around that boundary. We'll kind of ride this boundary, and it'll create a little bit of an extra spin in the atmosphere. So we start to get to around 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's around 2 p.m. Central Time. You see these storms kind of riding right into here. Not a whole lot going down here, where you have more of the higher risk of significant severe weather. But with there not being a lot of storms firing up in this region, there's a lot of fuel building in the atmosphere, a lot of CAPE, which is the available fuel in the atmosphere for these storms to really take advantage of. So a lot of fuel building in this region, and you keep this going, and you already see this kind of area of storm, area of storms really clustering up here in northeast Texas, starting to ride into Louisiana. These could already be posing a tornado risk and a large hail risk and a damaging wind risk. But watch what happens as you start to get into the evening. It's around 7 p.m. Sun hasn't completely set. You start to get a couple isolated, very strong storms here in the heart of Texas. These have the capability of producing very large hail, some gusty winds, and even a tornado threat. But watch what happens as you start to build into, this is just after midnight. This is around midnight. See these clusters of storms right in here, one down here along the Texas-Mexico line, and watch what happens. Low-level jet really ramps up right in here. A cluster of storms forms and begins to sweep across southeast Texas. This is like 3 o'clock in the morning. Remember, this is in Eastern time, so back this up an hour. These storms could really be destructive. Not trying to overhype anything to bring any fear to people, but if you live in this area of Texas, I'm telling you, these storms could pack a punch, and they continue to strengthen with a strengthening low-level jet and plenty of fuel in the atmosphere, even into the overnight hours. I mean, I'm talking about 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer CAPE in this area. That's a lot of fuel. If you're thinking, Mitch, I don't understand that what you're saying. That's a lot of fuel in the atmosphere. And these storms continue to cluster up and really turn into kind of almost to like a Boeing segment of storms right here and begin to sweep into Louisiana and continue to intensify with a embedded tornado threat and a very strong wind threat. and then they move on out. And I do think it'll quiet down a little bit more for Wednesday, but I do think we'll still have a little bit of a severe weather risk in eastern Texas from Wednesday too. But the updraft velocity swath for Texas today, you notice right along this kind of warm front boundary, and what this is called, like I said, is the updraft velocity track swath. This basically indicates on this particular one of this short range model, which is the HRRR model, where there could be some rotation with some of these storms. Doesn't mean that where you see this really highlighted area, red, vibrant colors, that there's definitely going to be a tornado. Just where there could be rotation, it could be very broad, which means, you need tight rotation to really drop a tornado. But you could see right around that warm front, really like some nasty storms right along the Louisiana-Texas state line right here, just south of Shreveport. Later today, even into Arkansas, watch out. But, we got these couple of storms really indicating a very highlighted area where there could be some rotation. But then you start to get into the overnight hours, and there is picking up on these storms down here. You see these storms? See how it pops up down here? And we got to watch out into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. What about Louisiana with this threat today? Well, here it comes. We're getting into, let's take it to about midday. I do want to mention, Mississippi. We could have a cluster of storms making its way on the east side of the Mississippi River. They could really lose some steam very quickly as they pretty much outrun the ingredients in the atmosphere, weaken very fast as they kind of make their way, as you can tell, through Mississippi into Alabama. Lose some steam. But, this is around 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. If you live in this area right here near Texas, East Texas, and western Louisiana, we could have some nasty weather right in here. And this is that boundary. You notice a lot of clusters of rain, showers, and storms up here in northeast Texas. But you get down here, and then you get a clearing. Whoever lives right along the southern flank of these storms, that boundary, that's where your highest tornado threat's going to be, at least this afternoon, this evening. Large hail threat, very large hail threat. Look at this area right in here. And this continues. Northern Louisiana. Monroe, Shreveport, Alexandria, even down here. You guys have a very large hail risk for a reason. So these will continue to sweep through. I think they'll weaken as they start to get closer to Mississippi. We'll have clusters of rain, showers, storms into the evening hours around 10 p.m. Still dealing. You're probably going to be dealing with flooding. And this continues. We'll have like this weird little area of storms kind of probably riding over, training over each other. So certain areas will just get several inches of rain. And then here comes that line of storms out of Texas. And folks, I'm trying to tell you, it's around 7 a.m., which is going to start, that'll start tomorrow's risk for Wednesday. These storms will mean business tomorrow morning. And watch how they begin to strengthen as you get more into Wednesday morning, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I'm telling you, tomorrow morning in Louisiana, I think is going to be dangerous. I really do think it is. And then, of course, you look at the updraft velocity swath. It really latches onto that idea of maybe a supercell that forms right here in eastern Texas, western and northwestern Louisiana. So be aware of that today. We'll see if that actually comes to action here. And then, it drops off significantly once it gets into Mississippi. But then, of course, you got to watch out with all these storms too, into the early morning hours all the way into tomorrow morning once the sun kind of comes up, right? So certainly, man, it's definitely going to be something to watch out for. I'm really interested to see what happens to the overnight hours. And of course, look at all the energy in the atmosphere. You notice it's not very high midday, but if you notice, look down here. Cape values well over 2,000 joules per kilogram. Heck, well over 2,500 joules. But watch as this energy kind of just chills here. It never gets messed with. It never gets ate up by storms. It kind of just sits here into the afternoon, evening hours. And if you notice, you go from high-end Cape levels to basically nothing up here in North Texas. That's that boundary. So the southern flank of these storms are eating up all this fuel right here in central and eastern Texas, even into Louisiana. But look at all this energy really building down here. And then those storms form. Look, you can actually see where the storms are. They form, eat up all that energy into the overnight hours, and plenty of fuel to really drive them into the early morning hours of Wednesday. So another thing driving this will be a damaging wind threat is this low-level jet. Plenty of low-level fuel, kind of compact into an area, 30, 40, 45 knot low-level jet into this region. It'll kind of get displaced, and then another one would form that really will drive. And really what I think is driving this, if you look at the wind barbs right in here, you see how they're kind of turning? That is a surface low forming. So with this surface low rapidly forming, you're going to have a pretty strong, very compact low-level jet south and southeast of this surface low forming in kind of north-central Texas, if you will. This will be driving a damaging wind threat. And I really think they could add a risk of significant winds, more so for tonight in this area of Texas. Maybe not for today, but for tonight into the early morning hours. We'll see what happens, though. We'll see what happens. A lot of rain, guys. This is how much rain's expected in Texas over the next 24 hours. This is how much rain's expected in the deep south. And it continues to like this area right where Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi meet for over 5 to 6 inches of rain. Guys, that's just over the next 24 hours. So a lot of rain. Let's break down the rest of the country, and then we'll talk about tomorrow's risk and a little bit on Thursday's risk. Not going to speak a whole lot on Thursday's risk because I really think we need to figure out today and especially tomorrow, because I definitely think tomorrow is going to affect Thursday. So the southeast today, we're going to deal with just widespread kind of light rain throughout Tennessee today, the northern sections of the deep south, some light rain in the southern and central Alps region, as you can tell, some lingering rains, kind of just a light pollen washer, if you will. This is around 7, 8 p.m. tonight. We're dealing with some light rain along the southern Alps, upstate South Carolina, northern Georgia. Some rain even in Alabama. Some rain showers all the way up the spine of the Alps. A little bit of shower activity up here in Kentucky. And then we get all the way into Wednesday morning, waking up to more rain. Kind of a similar start this morning for tomorrow morning, with just widespread kind of light, at times moderate rain across the western Carolinas, North Georgia. And, of course, we'll speak on this here in a second. But the Northeast today, a nice start, but you'll see the moisture bubbling up from your south and southwest. We are going to have a risk of some strong to severe storms in Ohio, even Indiana. Watch out for some storms in kind of southern, southeast Indiana today. And there will be some storms that bubble up here, maybe kind of just south of Cleveland, really northern Ohio, northeast Ohio. They could, hit the Erie area, northwest PA. But definitely could get some strong to severe storms in this area. I don't think that you're going to have like an all hazards threats for sure, but I do think you'll have a risk of some strong storms. And then as we get into the overnight hours, just some kind of isolated to widespread rain kind of drifts throughout Pennsylvania, Maryland. We got some rain showers down here, and then waking up tomorrow morning with just some rain showers throughout New England and the Northeast. South Central U.S. really have already spoke on this. I do want to mention this kind of consolidated area of rain over here in the panhandle of Texas, West Texas. And then some rain if you live in eastern New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico, a pocket of cold air aloft will allow for a little bit of snow to fly around out there. And then we could get some nasty storms here in North Texas too. Could produce some large hail, but that's about it. You're really lacking what we call thermodynamics up here for sure. And then we get into tomorrow morning. Could be dealing with some more showers and storms up here in North Texas. But we kind of already spoke about all of this already. I haven't mentioned Arkansas a whole lot. You guys do have a risk of severe thunderstorms, but you're really kind of north of the warm front boundary. So I do think that, you got to work yourself a little bit further south to see the severe weather today. The north central U.S. dealing with a little bit of shower activity this morning. Could deal with it throughout the morning hours. I could get some more showers, maybe even a storm that forms. Maybe areas of Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin could have some storms capable of producing some very small hail with enough cold air aloft. They could drift into the UP of Michigan. So don't be surprised if you get a shower, maybe a thunder shower today in northern Wisconsin, the UP, that produces some small hail. It's very possible. Western U.S., pretty quiet weather. Some showers, higher elevation snow showers in Montana. Idaho could get a little bit more amped up today in western Montana. Even in Yellowstone National Park, a couple inches of snow is possible as some snow showers will drift through. But all in all, very quiet weather day across the western U.S. The temperatures today, you can see this pocket of cooler air right here across the Mid-South Ohio Valley, all the way down to the central and southern Mississippi River Delta region, Valley region, 60s. We got a pocket of warmer air up here where you're not being influenced by rain and storms, 70s. Nice day across the southeast, especially the closer you are against the Atlantic Ocean. What's wild to me is, and I will mention, a very nice day into New York State, PA, New Jersey, New York City. I do think it's kind of one of those weird days in Boston where you'll get a flow off the ocean that will keep you all very cool, unfortunately. So you'll kind of get gypped with the warmer temperatures. But look at these warmer temperatures all the way up in Quebec, southern Ontario. Very nice. But man, look at this boundary down here. You can see where the warm front boundary is. Almost 100 degrees in South Texas today. But you got this pocket of cold air that some areas might not get out the 40s in western and northwestern Texas. And about average out west. Nothing too crazy one way or the other. I will mention the severe weather threat for tomorrow, folks. A moderate risk. Level 4 out of 5 in this red area. This is a big deal. It is. Already a moderate risk for southern Mississippi, areas of Louisiana, and then southwestern Alabama. Enhanced risk in the orange, level 3 out of 5. Includes like Mobile, New Orleans, Lake Charles. And that moderate risk, includes Jackson, Meridian, Hattiesburg, down to Baton Rouge. Slight risk all the way up to Tennessee, all the way back to Texas, all the way over to Georgia. So what is this driven off of? A tornado threat, definitely, and a damaging wind threat. Let's talk about the tornado outlook. Guys, in that red area, there's a 15% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. Look how large the yellow area is. A 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. That's high enough, right? But you also have, including the entire red area and a big chunk of the yellow area, a risk of significant tornadoes, EF2 or higher. 10% risk of that in the black outline region with the black dashes going in between it. Tornado threat is it rivals the same as what was like in Ohio last week. This is going to be a dangerous threat. Embedded tornadoes and rain-wrapped tornadoes. But folks, you cannot ignore this damaging wind threat. I would argue this is really what's driving the moderate risk. You have a 45% risk of winds, almost a 50-50 shot. In the pink area, 45% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. In this pink area in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. In the red area, it's a 30% risk of that. Yellow, 15% risk. Black outline region right here, I say risk of significant winds, which is winds exceeding 70 to 75 miles per hour, pretty much almost hurricane force winds. So, folks, this is a big deal tomorrow. Damaging winds is just as big of a deal as the tornado threat. Hail threat, not that very large. That didn't make sense. The hail threat is not that high, nothing astronomical, but this could increase too. It could. But you certainly have that 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But just a quick look at what the radar could look like tomorrow morning through the life of tomorrow's risk. There's that line of storms working in, and I want you to watch how this continues to intensify. Look at this bowing kind of structure to these storms. All these storms down here could be producing an ongoing tornado risk. But this line of storms blast over the Mississippi River, affects Jackson, and we take it all the way to about midday. This is just an ugly looking tornado risk. Really embedded spin-ups all in this with a ramping low-level jet right in here. And, I'm telling you guys, this is just a nasty risk right here. And, I know you're looking at this, you're like, well, this just looks like a big cluster of heavy rain. The dangerous part of this is there's going to be embedded tornado risk in all of this right in here. There is a fail mode to this too, meaning this might not materialize because of this. But there is also a scary dangerous mode to this because any tornadoes that do form in this risk, it's going to be definitely rain-wrapped. We call them rain-wrapped wedges here in the Deep South. You can't see them. They just look like a wall of rain, but you can hear it. But if you can hear it, it's probably too late. So this is going to be a dangerous risk in all these clusters of storms, damaging winds, tornado risk. We'll see if this tweaks one way or the other. They have already pulled the moderate risk at this. This continues into the afternoon hours. Same thing with all these storms. I think once you get into northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, I think the tornado risk might drop off some for sure. But look how, as you get to about 7, 8 p.m., you start to see embedded strengthening with these storms. Like you see this kind of peakish, like pink, purplish color right into here. That's where your damaging winds could occur, and all these storms right into here will have a lot of energy to work with. And these continue, folks. By the time you start to get to about 11 p.m., 12 a.m., in midnight. These storms start to weaken somewhat. They're still very strong along the Gulf coastline, the panhandle of Florida, southern Alabama. But, I mean, they look like they're starting to weaken once you get into Georgia. And then we start to get into the middle of the night, Wednesday night, and we got to continue to watch these. But, guys, I'm telling you, this is the updraft Felicity swath. You will certainly you basically can see it, right? Just all the way between Wednesday morning and then 18 hours after that, you run the risk of tornadoes where you see this rotation being depicted by this particular model run. So we're definitely going to have rotating clusters of storms in this area. And then, we cannot ignore the, let's look at the wind swath and let's go back and look at this. This is the predicted wind gust swath in the H-R model. And you can see these pockets. What's very impressive, even kind of north of the highest wind threat. But you can see these pockets of like 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, like especially down near the Gulf coastline. So very strong winds with this area for sure. So a very heavy rain too. This is rainfall between now and Thursday evening. Several inches of rain in this area. And pretty much everybody you see on your screen has at least a shot at 2 to 3 inches of rain. There's a severe weather risk for Thursday, and I know there's going to be some people who are bummed out. I'm not going to get deep into this. We really need to figure out tomorrow's severe weather risk. But what we do know, they have not upgraded this to an enhanced risk. There's a bimodal risk as far as a slight risk. Slight risk up here, level 2 out of 5, slight risk down here. And what we do know is there's just a 15% risk of severe weather in both of these areas. But there's also a very large area that has a risk of severe weather. Marginal risk from Lake Erie all the way down to Orlando, Florida. So we need to figure this one out a little bit more, and we will. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Stay safe today, and I'll talk to you soon.